first of all, what we saw back in 2021, these are people in our chapter who had decided to take either a portion of or all of their urban or suburban properties and make it into more of a pocket prairie. So here we go. Pocket prairies, I think, are really home learning labs. I've enjoyed talking to my neighbors about the plants I have in my yard, and I think everyone else has as well. A healthy pocket prairie should have a diversity of plants with a focus on providing a lot of resources for pollinators across multiple seasons as much as possible. I have found that variety in plant height, bloom shape, color, and other things are important. Plant growth patterns are especially important if you want to have a healthy long-term relationship with your space. You have to be willing to make changes as you go along. You'll see different approaches here in these different homes. And if you have questions about their methods or timing or resources or budget, I'd like for you to put those in chat, and we'll have a chance after each person's time to ask them about that, at least the ones who are able to get on this evening. So let's go. I'll start with Lorelei's home. This is pictures she provided to me back in 2019 when she was just getting started. And hold on a second, I'm going to try to move something here. Okay. She removed all the turf grass, laid down a lot of compost. She did a humongous amount of work, used 100% for native plants on her whole property. And her one tip was, at the time, only remove grass when you're willing to weed for years. And I've also found that to be true. This is what it looked like a year after planting. This is some of the blue-eyed grass that I photographed in 2021. I thought it was just beautiful. This is what it looked like on the front yard. As you stand at the street, you're seeing coral honeysuckle and a buttonbush tree here that she's really crazy about. It's a beautiful plant. But you can see how densely she planted everything. It really is a wonderful habitat. Just an example of some of the blooming plants that she had in 21. And this is a photograph of her backyard, and it's even more densely planted. And I like that she had such a variety of plants and heights, and I'm sure she had a lot of different blooming season times as well. She always enjoyed seeing a lot of bees and birds. And the last time I visited there, she told me that she loved having Carol come over because Carol would get down on her hands and knees and look for native bees. So she thought that was a lot of fun. One thing she did that I have not done is she used all of the edge spaces around her property. So what you see on the right is actually the alley that runs beside the side of her home and then her driveway. And as you can see, she planted sunflowers and a variety of blooming things, and you can just let it get as tall and bushy as the space allows, as long as you're not infringing on the alleyway pathway. I'm sure the city will let you know if there's a problem. This again is her front yard. That circular space is that coral honeysuckle. And I was just amazed when I visited her in 21 at the density of the plants in her yard. I don't think she had to weed much at this point because natives seem to have taken over all of the space. I think that's remarkable that happened in 2 years. This is another view of her side yard between her home and her next door neighbor. And you can see that while she has it densely planted, she's also got it controlled so that it's not encroaching on her neighbor's space. And that's something we've all tried to remember as we've enjoyed our native plants, is to be mindful of our neighbors so that they can enjoy them as well and not feel like we're overtaking their space. Now, this is the strip, as you can see, between the sidewalk and the street. That's my car parked there next to it. And I thought that was a remarkable use of the space. You'll see in a little bit that she's made some changes there. Lorelei told me at the time when I was there in 21 that sometimes neighbors with small children or babies in strollers were hesitant because they could hear all the wonderful, to us, wonderful bee humming in all these blooming plants, and they were not too sure about navigating that space. And so that was something she began to think about between 21 and 24. Okay, 24 looks a lot differently. She decided to put down a lot more compost. You can now see her irrigation system, which we couldn't really see before. The button bush is the tree to the right. The coral honeysuckle is still there, and there are a lot of plants there, but it's just spaced out differently. And that was something she decided that she wanted to do. And this is the opposite side of the yard. And it's a little thicker, and there's a lot of blooming plants. And of course, that will change with the seasons. Different things will go away and others will take over. I really like that she put bluebonnets in the space between the sidewalk and the street. It's still blooming. There's still a lot of plants there for pollinators, but it perhaps is more user-friendly for her neighbors. And I thought that was a good thing. She felt like that was a good thing to do. Here's her button bush. That is a favorite. And again, she took a lot of the undergrowth out, cut the grasses out, and put more mulch down just to give it a more, I don't know, I would say refined, but I will ask her what her thoughts were about this process. The density in the backyard, though, looks very much the same. This photograph was taken in June, and I think the one in 21 was taken probably in July. So it may look, a little differently than it did before, but essentially she hasn't made a lot of changes there. And this is, once again, the side yard. She's really good about using rain barrels and a lot of natural irrigation as much as possible, and then funnels it into the pipes that you can see. She's done a remarkable job with that. I could learn a lot from her about that. Okay, Callie, you want to take it and see what questions we have for Lorelei?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so if any of y'all have some questions specific for like Lorelei and that property, go ahead and put some in the chat. So we do have one question already. If the backyard had a walking path.
So it's a question, does it have a walking path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the backyard.
Okay, Lorelei, are you on? Carol, yeah, there you go.
There we go. I mean, sorry, we have to unmute.
That's okay.
So yeah, it looked very barren in that one area in the front garden there, didn't it? Looked like I'd torn everything out. It didn't look like that by the time you got to about, June. It fills back in very quickly, mysteriously. It really does. So that did not do tremendous damage.
And I think the question was, did you have a walking path in the backyard, or did you just leave it?
Yes. No, yeah. There is. There's a walking path back there. Let's see anything.
I'll go back.
But yeah, there are I don't know, large whatever Texas flagstone type things. You can barely see them in there, but they're there. It's just everything grows in between them mysteriously. And so yeah, it gets overgrown very quickly, especially with, if I'm not staying on top of it. And I know right now I will not be on top of it. Unfortunately. I don't have an HOA. That's one of the reasons why I bought this house. So I don't have deal with HOAs. However, there is a very unpleasant little man in my neighborhood who every year complains bitterly to the city of Allen. So I get nasty grams at least once every year from the city of Allen about I'm supposed to go mow my lawn. You don't mow prairies, as we all know. So you will notice that now there's a pollinator habitat that's a Xerces Society certification plaque, and one that's from National Wildlife Federation. And city's solution to the problem, because when the unpleasant gentleman would complain, the city had to send me a nasty gram and threaten me with fines. And then I would ring them up and they would tell me, oh, don't worry about it. And I can't do that. We're threatening to fine. So what they said was, well, if you have signs up, then we can receive the complaint, drive past your property, we will see the signs, and then we won't issue you the nasty gram that threatens fines. Now, isn't that stupid?
Another question was if you need if you need to supply supplemental water.
No, I don't. I happen to, I believe firmly in installing drip line, and that's a resale issue. But what I actually water, and the only thing that I water in my garden or in my yard, is my foundation. I do not run the drip line out in the rest of the place. So no, I do not water any of these plants.
And then what sort of soil preparation did you do before planting the prairie plants?
Compost. Compost, compost, and more compost. That is my world. I firmly believe in compost. My property is all Houston black, so I am on the state soil. Yay! And it is a vertisol. So I'll be with you, ladies and gentlemen. So I didn't need to do anything else with it. It very definitely had a wee bit of, compaction. But I didn't, that was all that I did. And the mulch gets put down mainly just for the sake of my neighbors, because they don't like when, early in spring or earlier in spring, they don't like having to look at my drip line. It's distracting. Weirdos. Yeah, I mean, if you want to know how weird I am, I can tell you this. There's also a bit of my dad in there. So that's another point of soil preparation. Some of my dad made it into my prairie.
Okay.
There you go. What method did you originally use to get rid of the grass?
Cut it out, quite literally. Used a sod cutter to cut it out.
Wonderful. Susan, on your timing on this, what are we looking at? Do we have time for another? Do you have time for another question for Lorelei, or?
Sure. No. Yeah, we can take one more.
Okay. Anyone have another question for Lorelei? I know it takes a minute to type, so just kind of waiting to see. All right. No, it looks like we're good on questions. Thank you so much, Lorelei.
Okay, she has gone to deal with some medical professionals who just showed up. So that's good timing. I'm gonna hang up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that was really special that she got to do that. Okay, we're going to move on to Jean Suplick's home in Plano. This is what it looked like when she started. And let's see, I think it was 2018. So she kept the foundation plantings. You see Nandina and a holly and some other things. And then built beds out and dug all the turf grass out and put a lot of compost in. A lot. She bought potted plants and used plants people gave her to start with. She didn't start with just seed. And this was late 2019. And I really like the way she groups plants. It looks rather formal in a way, except that it's native plants. And it's just a different look, but I think it's really lovely. They did put, you'll see sometimes like the chicken wire wrap, it's to keep the rabbits out of new stuff. This is what it looked like in 2021 when I visited for the first time. Jean's a big birder for those of you who know her well, and you can see the bird boxes and nesting boxes and hummingbird feeders, and she has all kinds of stuff. Her milkweed has done exceptionally well, and she has a part sun, part shade in the front. She faces she faces the east. So that is a really good environment for a lot of part sun, part shade plants. And this is the other side of her front yard. There's a big tree you can see there, and she has a lot of Turk's cap underneath it that you'll see more of in a minute. There's skull cap and cedar sage and just a lot of really lovely things there. Just all different kinds of plants. Some of it gets quite dense, but still looks grouped, and she just has really enjoyed it. Has had all the pollinators and birds. Even a rattlesnake master, you know, something you might not think of putting in the front bed of a suburban home, or has done really well. And I think that's cool. She tells me that she often has neighbors out on walks stop to ask her about different plants because they've not seen them before. And it gives her a chance to talk about it with them. Now this is 2024. It's a little earlier in the year, so things aren't quite as tall and bushy, but you see the same plants again. She's got, I believe this is frostweed coming up under the tree there. And she's decided to keep the Nandinas for now. They do provide a good backdrop to her landscaping and also some cover for the birds that come and go. And you can see she uses a rain barrel as well. I like that she's using such a wide variety of blooming plants, and she does a section at a time. So when she decides to make a change, she'll pull anything out that's gotten overly aggressive and replace it with something else. So she's willing to make changes as she goes along. Excuse me. And I think that that's really served her well. It's a really beautiful yard. Okay, that was my last slide for Jean. Is Jean on with us? She was going to try, but it doesn't sound like she was able to. They're actually on their way to Oregon. So she wasn't sure if they were going to be able to get on or not.
Yeah, I don't think Jean made it, but Rodney's here. So, hey, Rodney.
Okay, well, good. If you have any questions for Jean, if you'll go ahead and put them in chat, we'll try to record those. And I'll find out the answers for you, and then we'll get back to you about it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right. Rodney, you're here.
I am here.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah. On my iPhone, because the mouse died on it. I couldn't use the computer.
Oh, no. Well, it wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if there weren't problems, right? That's just the way I feel about it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start, and you jump in as you want to, and then we'll have questions for you at the end.
Sure.
These are the first photographs I took of Rodney's home. He's out in Trinity Falls in McKinney with a very vibrant HOA that we'll mention here in a little bit. This is Rodney's backyard, and I thought it was just remarkable, the variety of plants he has back here. He was really focused on providing habitat for birds and pollinators, and it has been very successful. And he has a flagstone path. You can see, I should have taken better pictures of the walkways and things. Sorry about that. But
It's a little overgrown there, so it's hard to see.
It's a little overgrown, but he did have a beautiful plan, and we'll talk about how that came about here in a second. Oh, okay. He'd hoped to start with bare soil, but the developer overrode him and put turf grass in anyway, unfortunately. But Rodney hired a professional native landscaper to help him remove the turf and have a laid out plan, including pathways and vines and trees and a wide variety of things. And they installed that. So this is his walkway from the front to the back along one side of his home. And you can see how well laid out everything is. Is your Mexican redbud still doing well?
It's still alive.
Good, good. I love that tree. This is another shot of the backyard, and you can see that he's installed trees as well as shrubs and then low-growing plants. And not everybody that I visited has done that. They've taken whatever existing trees there were and then added things to it. But Rodney was in a new home, in a new place. And so, Rodney, were there any trees on the property when you moved in?
Not on the property itself. Behind the fence, you can see the fence there. It was so thick back there, you could not see the road, there's a little playground back there. And then beyond all that is where the Elm Fork of the Trinity River is, and I'm sorry, the East Fork of the Trinity River. And on beyond that is Melissa. And we couldn't see any of that. And just after we bought the lot and while they were building the house, the developer, it changed hands, the developer, and the new developer came in and took out 22 trees, mainly the cedar trees out in the back of that. Therefore, we could see all the way into Melissa, where we couldn't even see the road that was 100 yards on the other side of the fence. So, to get privacy, I elected to plant some red cedars and put a couple of oak trees in there and a few other things. They've done well. They've gave us plenty of privacy, but now they're getting a little big, especially the cedars. So I'm probably going to have to take a couple of them out, even though they really provide a lot of habitat for birds and other things, other critters out there. I have a family of rabbits now living in the yard, which it's the first time I've had that happen. But I will probably have to thin out some of it. Otherwise, it'll get a little bit too overgrown. Yeah.
Okay. I've forgotten the name of this beautiful plant, but the purple flowers is
it's fall obedient plant. If anybody needs some, I've got plenty.
Okay. That's really lovely. And the Turk's cap in the front, this is his front walk. And the Turk's cap, I've noticed at Jean's house, it's mostly in the shade, and at Rodney's, it's full sun most of the day, I think. So it's
a western exposure, full sun, reflective heat off the glass and everything. And it's about 10 feet tall. The heat does not deter it.
Well, that's a good news, bad news thing sometimes, huh?
I have to constantly prune it back. Yeah. Otherwise, you could walk by it.
Okay. And this is a picture taken of that same area this year, a little bit different angle. So when I visited with Rodney about it, we enjoyed looking at the variety of plants he's got there, but he talked a little bit about how much it has grown.
Yeah, what you see there is mainly, well, there's rattlesnake master coming up everywhere. I planted one rattlesnake master about 5 years ago. Did well, bloomed, and then reseeded. Now I had about 300 plants come up, mainly because there wasn't any competition for it. Therefore, they just all popped up. So this year I thinned them out as much as I could. There's about 30 or 40 of them blooming this year, and it's like a rattlesnake master jungle that you walk through. Again, I will be thinning those out again because it's just they're a little much. I'm surprised the HOA hasn't said something, but
So the work in the beginning seems to be working really hard to get things established and to get the things out that you don't want. And then over time, it kind of switches around. And now you start managing what's there. And so the work continues. It's just a different kind of work.
Yeah, so there's coralberry planted on the other side, kind of on the close to the property line to the next house. That is spread tremendously. And again, I spent this spring ripping a lot of that out, leaving a couple of them, but I'll probably have to rip some more out. There's just a variety of plants that, you know, in nature, when you see plants, they have a lot of competition. So therefore, I think that limits the size of them. When you have amended soil with not as much competition, some of these native plants just really take over and grow all over the place. Just to the right of this picture is in the little front bed by just on the other side where that Turk's cap was. I have a skunk leaf goldeneye, which typically is not that big of a plant when I see it out a couple times that I've seen it out in the wild. This one has taken over the entire bed, and I've got to rip it out, you know, probably this winter, this early spring. So yes, there's a constant. You can't really see it in this picture. This was taken earlier, and I'd cut it back, but it's just on the other side of the Turk's cap there, and it's just overtaken that whole bed. So it's got to come out.
So we have to be willing to make radical changes sometimes, is what you're saying.
You have to manage the plants. You have to know what plants, how they're going to behave.
I've talked about, go ahead and talk about that. I've written something up from what you said when I was there that day, but go right ahead and talk about it.
Well, you just have to know the characteristics of the plant that you're planting. You know, I wanted goldenrod, but I didn't realize how invasive goldenrod could be. And I planted 6 plants and I got about 1,000. So I spent, again, this past winter ripping 300, 400 of these plants out. You just have to be careful what you put in. You have to know the behavior of the plant. If you want goldenrod in your yard, I would definitely put it in a container or have it, you know, contained in some way, unless you want to be chasing it all over the place. You know, if you have 10, 15 acres and you want it in a corner somewhere, by all means plant it, you know, if it's out of the way. And that can be said for several other plants, even plants that you see in the nursery trade that, you know, like a Greg Smith's flower, will spread if you're not careful, and it spreads quite rapidly too. It's easier to rip out. You can control it easier, but you just have to understand that, yes, you do have quite a bit of work to do with some of these plants. It's just not put the plant out there and let it go.
Okay. Why do we think that's true, but it's not? You're right. And one of the things that really struck me when I talked to you that day was you said we really do need to understand how a plant reproduces before we put it in the ground. You know, whether it's windborne seed, underground rhizomes, or above ground runners like the coralberry, you really should understand that before you start. It'll save you some time later, possibly.
It will.
Okay.
You have to know what your expectations too, you know, what you're trying to create. So.
And this plant was something in the front. I remember.
This, I'm trying to see what, it looks like it's amongst all the rattlesnake master that's coming up. I think there was a baptisia coming up in there somewhere, which did up and, you know, did its thing this May, but the rattlesnake master was just covering it,
overshadowing it. Yeah,
pretty much.
Okay. Well, it still looks beautiful.
It's a possum haw holly that you see in the foreground there, just behind the salvia greggii. There's a mixture of plants all through that front bed. A lot of Engelmann daisy. Again, planted one Engelmann daisy and got hundreds of them. We had a dig earlier this year, and I gave a bunch of it away. So,
well, that's a good upside. You can give it away if you can get it in a pot for someone, or they can come by and get it. That's true.
Yes.
And this is the backyard in 24. So you can see that what he said about the cedars, how massive they've become. And I know the birds appreciate that, but yeah, you've got to think about how you want this to be going forward.
Yeah, it's actually a great bird. It's a great tree for hummingbirds. You don't
Oh, is
realize
that right?
The hummingbirds, even today, there was 2 of them out there, and they were going along picking off either little spiders or some little insect or bug off each of the tips of the leaves. And they spend quite a bit of time doing that. They do come to the feeder and go to the plants, but they probably feed on that just as much as they do anything else in the yard. You don't realize, but they have to have a lot of protein to build flight muscles. So they spend a lot of their times foraging for little, I don't know if it's mites, little spiders, other little things that, are on the tips of the limbs of the cedar.
So you don't want to cut them all out. You sure don't want to lose them all, do you?
No, I'll probably leave one of them, but 2 of them have got to go probably. It's amazing how fast those grew too, because they were only about 5 feet tall when we planted them, and now they're a good 20 feet tall.
Oh, and that's 5 years, right?
6 years. Yeah, this is
6 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 6 years now. So they
Wow.
grew fast. Of course, one of the lacy oaks I got at the herd plant sale was only about 2-3 feet tall, and it's almost 15 feet tall now. So some of them go pretty quick.
That is one question. We're seeing a list of your trees that you put in and your shrubs. I wanted to ask, did you acquire most of the plants that you bought at the herd plant sales, or what other resources did you really like?
Mainly, well, we got a lot of them from Shades of Green. Carol Feldman, who was the landscape architect who did this, she picked out, we went to Shades of Green, picked out a lot of the trees, the chinkapin oaks, the lacy oaks, the cedars, the Mexican redbud. We picked those out from there. The Texas buckeye, elbow bush, the rusty black haw, American beautyberry, all came from the herd. And one of the lacy oaks I planted came from the herd. So it's a mixture. I try to go to the various plant sales, but the herd's one of the best ones around. So I can get a lot of plants from there. And we plant a lot of stuff. Some of it makes it, some of it doesn't.
That's true. Okay. Well, thanks, Rodney. I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
Any questions in chat for Rodney? Callie's gonna talk with you about that.
Sure.
Hey, we had a question of what professionals you were able to find to work with you.
Like I mentioned, it was Carol Feldman.
Okay. And do we have any other questions for Rodney? Give you guys a few minutes to type.
She's going to just be really quiet.
So the rusty black haw I got at the herd. It was one year when I think we got 5 specimens in, so I took one of them.
From their plant cell or at a different time?
The plant cell.
Yeah, he didn't mean he dug it out of the prairie. Right?
Well, I was certainly hoping not that. But...
No. But as Rick reminded us last week, we can't take plants or seeds from places without the owner's permission. And we certainly cannot help ourselves.
Not from the herd.
Not from the herd. Thank you very much. Yeah.
How do you manage interactions and expectations of your HOA?
Well, the plans all had to be approved from the HOA. Carol had to submit them. I still have my plans. It's like 12 pages of landscape plans. We had to have each plant approved, and including the flagstone, the pavers. The thing that held it up the most were the pavers on the side of the house, the brick pavers.
Really?
Because they were afraid it would cause too much runoff. And and the French drains and everything else on that side. And that was the hardest thing to get approved for the pavers of all things. But yes, the front yard, I wanted to have more flower beds out there, but I had to have 60% grass in the front yard, 60% Bermuda grass in the front yard, which, much to my dismay, I left. So you just, you get the regulations of the HOA and you work around those and you submit the plans to get them to approve it. So, when they come back to you and says, hey, you approved this, if you didn't like it, you shouldn't have approved it. So I haven't had any issues with them, except when it gets kind of messy looking. And of course, there are some plants in there that I've put in afterwards, which weren't on the approval list. And I've gotten in some letters on those. So,
well, you did a great job.
Well, it's work in progress. It's still a work in progress. So.
Rodney, do you have any allies in the HOA district who, like you, want to use native plants?
Not in the HOA so much. We're in a mud district, and the president of the mud district, and he and I are pretty good friends. So, it not that he has anything to do with the HOA; they're separate, but it is a little bit of an ally per se, because we put some of the same plants into the plantings in the community. So, it's not like I'm the only one that has certain plants. If you drive around the community, you'll find these same plants in the community flower beds. So that helps. Anything else?
Oh no, that's everything from the chat. Do we have any more questions? I think we're good, but we can definitely let you know if any more pop up.
Thanks, Rodney.
Yeah,
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to move on to Rick and Lisa's home. They have a beautiful place, and this is a shot of their backyard. It overlooks a green belt, and what do you call the water feature back there, Rick? I've forgotten.
It's a pond.
Canal, or
it's just a little pond, little creek pond
little
system
pond?
back there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a good shot taken in 2021. And you can see the bed under the tree is where they planted a lot of their native plants. They started in 2018. They acquired plants and seeds from a variety of places. And I think you often collect seeds from friends. Is that right?
Yes, whomever, yes.
Whomever.
Plants and seeds from friends, the things we've collected. I've also, purchased some shades of, not shades of green, sorry.
Shades of green?
Well, not the seeds.
Oh, seeds from Native American.
Native American seeds.
Oh, Native American seeds,
Yeah,
sure.
so combination of, confiscated seeds from local meadow areas, Native American seed, and plants from friends. And a few from the herd plant sale, a little bit of everything, yeah.
Well, one of the things that I really appreciated when I first visited their home was how important it was to him for it to be beautiful for all of his neighbors to see, because it is quite visible. And it also has proven to be a good conversation starter. So that's something important to remember is, as we put these things in, you need to have what they call an elevator speech to talk to people about it. Why did you do this? And what's the point? And what are you gaining from it? And how's it good for the environment? And you can tailor it to who person you're speaking to. But I have found that, and I think they have found, if it's attracting pollinators, often people will come and talk to you about why that's happening. Perhaps they're seeing a lot of things in your yard that they're not seeing in theirs.
Correct.
These are some beautiful shots that I think Rick took this. And one of the things I really appreciated about their space is they went to a lot of effort to landscape areas along the side of the home with a lot of different plants in it. And you can see They've even got milkweed in this space. And when we're starting out, you might not think about that, to take a true prairie plant and just put it next to the house, but it works. And so I think that's the really cool thing about pocket prairies, is we can put them absolutely anywhere. Like the Texas thistle is not something you would ordinarily expect to see in somebody's yard, but isn't that beautiful? And it looks like it's done really well.
I think that's a basket flower. Which,
oh, is that a basket
yeah,
flower?
that's a
Oh, I
basket
misspoke.
flower.
Sorry.
Crazy big one.
It's a crazy big healthy one. Yes.
Crazy big healthy one. Okay. And Rick sent me this photograph back in 21 because the sleeping bees are so cute. You're a really good bee photographer. You know that.
Bees are our friends. I love doing this. One of the fun things about doing this in your yard and setting up this landscaping is your interaction with wildlife. I love going out there in the evening, you know, and finding the little bees that are falling asleep on the stems. They do it every night. And these, by the way, in case you didn't know, these are the males. The females are they're ground nesters. They're in their nest. The males are not allowed in the nest. So they have to bunk out up on the stems. And they did this during when they're out, certain times of the season, you'll find different species that bunk out like this together. And they'll go to sleep. And they'll just
that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
since you introduced me to that, I have begun to look for those in my yard, and I've been lucky several times and seen them.
Yeah.
Okay, 2024 looks much bushier. There's a lot more going on here. Rick, you want to take a moment and talk about some of the plants in this space?
Yeah, and it's and Rodney, number one, I'm a rank amateur compared to Rodney, Jean, or Lorelei. You know, I'm getting started with this and have some beds, and I keep adding to it every year and adding more beds. But you know, I'm learning as I go, and so I'm not near as experienced with it. But you know, hey, it's fun. It's changed, as you can. This is what I call my shade garden because it's under that oak tree, and I'm frankly having to deal with a bit of an issue. You see all that frostweed in the back. The frostweed has really, really had a good year, and it has actually kind of decreased my diversity in this bed. It has taken over a large chunk of it, so that's what I'm gonna have to work on, managing it back this
And
year.
we were warned, but when we put that in.
I planted, I think I put 2 plants in, and
I think they actually came from my front yard.
They did.
Susan, you gave me those plants.
And you warned
my
us.
fault.
You did. You warned us.
Yes.
But
I
we
did.
love them. They're just.
But they've gone kind of wacky. They like shade. It's a shade lover, so
They
they
do.
really enjoyed being under that oak. They have semi-smothered my Turk's cap, which is right along the windows there. But the Turk's caps are okay, but they're in there, and they've been flowering. I have a mist flower in front of them right now, which is spread out like Rodney had mentioned also. But
Yeah.
I like having the mist flower up because it attracts queens and monarchs for quite a while. It flowers for a long time, and it's my #1 butterfly magnet overall. It seems so. I give it X amount of space, but gonna have to. When you set up these beds, they get kind of thick and things change, and they begin to get grouped. I did not group these plants; they found their happy spot. And
that's interesting. Okay.
A lot of this was just slung seed also, but you find certain things coming up in certain areas based on light levels, water levels. And so they tend to group themselves a little bit. And you do have to manage it through the years and adjust it, because you can get takeovers like this where you've got to kind of pull back. You'd mentioned the milkweed earlier, Susan. My milkweed in both this bed and that side bed you showed initially, they're smothered out. So I'm setting up a new bed that is going to be that one has gotten pretty happy this year. I've expanded it somewhat. It has a lot of Rodney's favorite plant, goldenrod, in it. And yes, it is aggressive.
So has your goldenrod escaped the bed and moved into the yard? It
hasn't escaped the bed, but it's in about 30 to 40% of the bed now. And it's pretty thick, so I'm going to have to control it also. In that side bed now, there is a lot of Mexican hat that came up. I've got a little bit of ironweed. I have the goldenrod, like we mentioned. I have a couple of sinizos that are growing in there too, that have to kind of keep size down, keep trimming them back. I like having them in there. The honeybees do love them when they flower. Yeah, this one here, you can see the sinizos in the back, also known as Texas sage. You can see the coneflowers. See all the Mexican hat in the front here. also. And there's also a lot of blue curls early in the season that I'll get. And that came
Oh,
from
that's
my
cool.
seed. That came from the seed mix I slung in there. But it's gotten pretty thick. So you do have to manage them. That's part of the fun part. You get, in the off season, you kind of manage your plants and
slung is a technical term for how you distribute seed.
that's what I do. I just sling the seed. Not really organized, but like I said, the plants tend to find their place.
They do. I agree with you. I love this picture, Lisa, in the standing cypress. I didn't realize it got that tall.
Yeah, this is our newest major bed. Yeah, that is a standing cypress that came from seed. That one's it ended up being about 7.5, pushing 8 feet tall. A very, very happy group of standing cypresses we had in that. That's a new bed that gets full sun in our backyard. I put in there mainly, in this one I tried something different. I put in perennials. I don't think I threw any annuals in there at all. I wanted to see how a perennial mix would work there, and it's worked pretty good. Several haven't come up yet. But one thing for folks that are starting this, I do want to mention, and maybe Ronnie can chime in Lorelei's gone. But when you put in seed, it may be 3-4 years before you see some of those plants.
That's really important. And then they'll sometimes go dormant for a year.
Yeah, they'll sit in there and wait for the proper, to get scarified, the proper amount or proper conditions, and then up they come. So that is still happening in my shade garden, which was my first one under the oak, where things pop up and go, oh yeah, that was in that mix from 4 years ago.
Yeah, you wishful thinking, Rick. I'm not gone.
Oh, you're still there? Okay, good.
I refuse to go.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm not silly and stubborn. But yeah, I mean, seed will wait for a long time until it has the right conditions. And I mean, it will go, as far as I'm concerned, some of it will go for decades.
Yeah.
I mean, it will go for years. Honestly, it will.
So don't be too disappointed if you use a seed mix and you don't see everything that was listed, because it's probably going to pop up. You're going to start seeing more of that mix pop up over the next 2 or 3 years at least.
And then you'll forget it was in there, and then it'll show
and then
up.
It shows up, and it's a nice surprise. Last photo you're showing, that's my new little milkweed bed, which I'm going to enlarge. Where all I did was I went to a field, pulled out some green milkweed, and I have one green comet in there too, and just getting them started this year. And I'm going to I'm going to leave it as milkweed, let it be a little milkweed plot.
Did it bloom this first year, or did it just
none of these did? No, they're very young, and they did not. But I expect they will next year. I expect some of these to probably start to pop some flowers and some seeds next year.
And did you have any
full sun? So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, did you put any tuberosa in there, or just
I did not there, but I do have a tuberosa over in the shade area under the oak, because it will tolerate shade. So I have a couple coming up in there. And then I think you gave me some seeds. So I'm planning on putting some tuberosa seed, some more over there in that area to get more of that going. But here, what I'm putting is Varietas, sun lover. And like I said, I have one green comet that I transplanted in here. And
that's cool.
It has gone down, but you just leave them be. The roots are alive, and they should come up in the spring.
Well, you guys have had such extraordinary success finding milkweed. I won't be surprised if you have one of everything that could possibly grow here by the time you're done.
But anyway, this has been fun. I take a lot of my photography. I'll go out there and get some pretty nice photos, close-ups of the
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. That's our little sleeping guy.
Miss Flower.
Miss Flower. That's a monarch on them. Beginning to see the monarchs, so I'm expecting to start seeing them in the yard. I've been seeing the queens the last few days.
I haven't seen a monarch in the yard yet either. And then here's this year's sleeping bees.
So that's our little sleeping bees, and they get up there. This one here, this was kind of funny. These were cuckoo bees, and one of them was asleep on the thing. The other one was doing the Titanic, I am king of the world, on top of the little flower stem there. It was kind of cute. So.
Well, I enjoyed adding these photographs. Thanks for sharing them.
Sure.
Those are great. I think we're ready for questions for you guys.
While we're waiting on questions, I do have an HOA, and even though I have high visibility and walking trail behind us with the pond and creek, I think the key is have borders if you have a fairly stickler type HOA, group your plants. As long as it looks like landscaping, my HOA doesn't have a problem. You know, as long as they have borders, and, you know, and I don't particularly group, but I haven't done a lot in the front. I haven't done a lot, but I'm going to this winter. That's my next major project. Is gonna be under the 2 trees in the front. We're gonna put a border in, and then I'm probably gonna be very limited the kind of plants I put in, so it looks more landscaped. It'll be native, but it'll be 2 or 3 species kind of grouped together, so that the HOA will not get on my case about what we do. But the side, the back, they have given me no grief at all.
Well, it looks great. Any questions?
Yeah, we have one. Do you have problems with fire ants?
We do have fire ants here in the yard. And I keep them under control. I have a lot of different kinds of ants that I'll run into. A lot of acrobat ants also live in the gardens and in the area. My bigger problem is rabbits. I don't know if you noticed on that first picture, you saw a little bit of a fence around underneath the oak tree. And that's just to kind of control them. It doesn't completely control them because the babies get in there and they live in there. But the big part with the rabbits for me, because I have an open area, so we get a lot of rabbits, is in the early spring when the plants are coming up. The rabbits will just keep them from coming out of the ground. They will nibble that fresh greenery, and they just prevent it from even getting cracked. Once they get going, there's more there than the rabbits can handle, and they frankly are not quite as keen on the more mature greenery once it kind of gets past that really tender early growth stage. So you gotta try to keep them out as best you can as you're establishing these beds, and or just really early in the growing season, I've found. Yeah, that's been my biggest issue is rabbits. They're so cute, but they drive me crazy.
Anything else?
Yeah, and I think this question can go for anyone with the prairies. Does anyone have dogs, kids, and dealt with snakes with the prairies?
Visiting dogs.
Yeah, visiting dogs.
We did have this giant dog jump into our little
At the
garden
bed out
trap.
there, yeah. It got trapped inside the rabbit pits. It couldn't figure out how to get
Jump
out.
out.
Yeah. We do have,
It was great.
yeah, we have a lot of wildlife here because of the Little Creek Pond too. I have a game camera, so I get to watch what goes on out there. We have bobcats in the yard fairly regularly during times of the year. And they help with the rabbits, so they're invited. We also have coyotes, but they stay outside the fence. They never come in the yard. But we get all sorts of variety of furry critters out here. Snake wise, not really. Haven't had a snake problem. We have water snakes down by the water, but they don't come up here. We did have one of our cats happened to bring in a little baby water snake one time. I don't know where it got it. It was in the yard. Because our cats, I take them outside in the evening with me. They like to just roll around in the grass. They don't wander around. But at some point I had done that, and one of them apparently had found one maybe in the grass, and it actually brought it in with them when we came back inside the house. What else? We had turtles. They lay eggs in the yard, in the beds. A lot of animals. We get a lot of animals. We get a lot of wildlife in the gardens. And like I said, we get around the perimeters. We will get the bigger predators too, because they're in there. So,
Rodney, if you had any, I guess people are worried about or asking about problems with snakes. Have you had any problems with them?
I don't consider snakes problems. I mean, I had then that Turk's cap by the garage. There's a 3.5 foot rat snake living underneath it for a while.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I've had the little brown snake. I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact name of it, but I've found those while digging around in the beds and stuff, especially in the leaf litter and things like that. Little garter snakes and, things like that. And, of course, I have a Hesperus cotton rats that live out in the backyard, which is the native rodent that you find in the prairie. I have, I don't know, it's a little community of them that, they live underground. They bury in, burrow into the ground, and they live out there. So yes, I probably have snakes that come hunt them. And of course, we have armadillo comes in the yard occasionally. skunk comes in the yard.
Sounds
I'm
pretty
sure-
healthy.
I'm sure I've had bobcat. I've seen bobcats around. I've never actually seen it in the yard, but I'm sure it's back there. So yes, if you build it, you know, you're going to get wildlife. I mean, but you just have to understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
we have all the pollinators and everything. I mean, that's what you're doing. And of course, things eat those, and you know, so it's, you get the whole chain.
Right, you're developing a healthy food web, so you're gonna
Have to expect that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Rick.
Sure.
Lisa?
Thank you.
Okay, this is, oh, go ahead. What?
No, go ahead, Susan.
Okay, this is Paul and Cindy Napper's home in Allen. They have 2 acres behind their home. And they are traveling, so they're not with us this evening. They started a change over to native plants in 2019. Paul used solar cover tilling and brush hogging in 2020 to try to start making a change. And he bought a lot of his plants that he installed at the herd plant sale. So this is just another shot of his space. You can see there's just an awful lot of different kinds of grasses. That's of course, grasses and Maximilian sunflower and milkweed have done really, really well in his space. Just beautiful, beautiful plants. Good rattlesnake master there. And the milkweed, he's not planted any of it. It just came up. It's just there, and it's done just really great. Indian paintbrush. So his space is so much bigger than the other properties we've looked at. The plant mix is quite different, and they've not probably planted as much as the rest of us have, but it's a great habitat. Oh, sorry. There's some of this milkweed. It's in bloom when I was there that time. And some liatris, and I think that's a goldenrod on the right. And Cindy had sent me this slide because she thought this would be another way to enjoy their property. So she designed and built this labyrinth, and had hoped she would be here this evening to talk about it. But you walk the pathways, and it's a meditative space, I believe. So that was just another way they use their space, which I thought was really great. Now, this is how it looks in 24. There's a lot more going on color-wise out there in the prairie. I was there at a different month, but not that far off from the first photographs from 21. So I don't know if we'd had a lot more rain this particular year, that things were blooming better, but it looks really good. And the milkweed looks great. And that's the basket flower again, isn't it? Yeah. That's a beautiful plant. This rattlesnake master, he says, is about 6 years old, and has gone through all the different, freezes and droughts, and done just really well. He decided to send me a list of all the plants they've seen in their prairie since the beginning. And if you want to take a photo shot of that, if you're getting started, it might give you some ideas on things that might do well in whatever space you're using. And he talked about how they took care of it. He started out push mowing and decided that it was mowing too close to the ground. So for the last 5 years, he's hired someone to come in and brush hog it at about 1 foot high. They did that 2 years in a row and got a lot more flowering plants, which was likely due to the sunlight getting in a better way. It also leaves a lot of thatch, but it still seems like the best solution to him for now. Not mowing every year was enough to get several things to come on that he hadn't seen before, which was Texas star, green milkweed, the goldenrod, prairie parsley, Texas thistle, and Indian blanket. And his little blue stem has not done very well. Big blue stem has done okay. Yellow Indian grass has done the best. And I have found that to be true in my small space as well. I've had no success getting little blue stem started, even starting with live roots from Native American seed. So it's a hard thing to get going, apparently. Okay. If you guys have any questions for Paul and Cindy, if you'll put those in chat, I'll get those to them and get back to you with their answers. It's great they have so much space to work with, and they probably have a lot to share, and I wish they were here tonight to be able to do that.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, isn't that something? I just enjoyed going out there so much.
Yeah, you can
They're
tell
very,
it sounds
very,
it.
huh?
I said we
Sorry?
can tell it sounds it. Like, yeah, we can tell you.
Yeah, it
enthusiasm.
was
It's
just,
great.
it was a revelation to me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're a tiny bit over, but if anyone has any like last
Okay. Well,
or what, that's okay.
we have one more area. It's at my home. I'll just flip through them real quick.
Go
Okay.
Go
Last
for it.
one.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We can, it'll be short.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a picture of 2021. This is my backyard. What I did was I took a space that was about 10 feet by 20 feet. And John and I tried very hard to remove the turf grass. We tried solar and a couple of other methods, and we worked really hard, and it seemed to go pretty well. I felt like we had pretty good results at the beginning. We started it actually in 2019. When Daniel Cunningham was at Water University, he sold boxes of 20 native plants with instructions on how to plant them. And that was my beginning, was those 20 plants. And so this is what the space looks like in 2021. Obviously, the plants I got from Daniel's service did remarkably well that year. I was really, really happy with it. I included this photograph because this is the frostweed in my front yard. I have a pollinator bed in the front that's well landscaped and has a border around it. As they were speaking to HOAs, I have an HOA. And I have a Monarch Watch sign up, and it's a lot of conversation starting with neighbors. In fact, some come this time of year, they'll come by and knock on the door and say, "Are the butterflies here yet?" Because they want to make sure and come by and see them when they get here. So frostweed is one of my favorite plants. Okay, let's see. This is this year. This is 24. So there's not as much blooming. The turf grass has crept back in and has kind of taken over different spaces. Some things that have done really well in my yard is this particular grass, what Randy Johnson called cowboy bluegrass. I'm not sure what the Latin name is for it, but it's really pretty. You can see that it's very dense. I've got all different kinds of Turk's cap and milkweed and Mexican hat and rattlesnake master. I've just got a little bit of everything in there. But I do have a lot of pollinators, and I really am happy about that. Yellow Indian grass has become one of my favorite plants. It's done remarkably well in my yard, and I think it's just lovely. And something else that's done well is on the right is a tuberosa, Asclepias tuberosa milkweed. I bought it at the herd plant sale this year, and it is going to take over my yard. I put it in April, and it's gone great guns. And the other thing that I'm going to have to cut back is the Mexican hat. It seems to reproduce like crazy. So I don't mind pulling it up. And here in this picture, you can see that the turf grass has come back and kind of choked some things out. Thanks to everybody for participating. I really appreciate it. If you want to take a photograph of this, this is how you get hold of the ones you want to talk to again. And here's some resources that we all used for plants. I'm sure there's a lot more, but these are the ones that I liked. And that's it. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we went over.
Oh, thank you, Susan. And no worries. Sorry about my little mix up there.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, can you show the contact info again real quick, please?
Sure.
Okay. And yeah, any parting questions or anything? I think getting a lot of thank yous, a lot of interest. I think we're inspired to go plant our pocket prairies.
Good, good. Well, any amount of space you got is just the right amount. Just start somewhere.
Just out of curiosity, at what point is it no longer a pocket prairie and actually just a prairie?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I love the term though, yeah.
Typically, if you're talking about a pocket prairie, generally it's considered to be 1 acre or less in size.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So the Nappers property is really a proper prairie. Yeah.
That's cool.
Thank you,
Great.
Susan. It was very
Oh,
good.
thanks.
Thank you for putting
Thanks
this
for doing
together.
it.
Yeah, this was
You
fun.
bet.
Thank you. This is great.
A lot of fun to talk to you guys as we went along.
Yeah, it was great hearing from all of
Yeah.
you. And Lorelei, we hope you recover well and soon.
So do I. Thank you.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Happy horticulturing. I guess that would be a good way to say it.
All right. Yeah, this is great. I think people are just, finding their way off, and I haven't seen any new questions come through.
Okay.
Guess.
Well, Rodney, I'm looking forward to the Audubon meetings this year. I saw the list on the newsletter. That's exciting.
Yes, we just put all